All right, today we're going to dive into another metaverse that I think is going to be fun to not only break down, but also understand what it is they're trying to do in this big space, which is getting bigger by the day. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to TechPath. Let's dive into Bloktopia today, a little deeper of where this project is going. Kind of, if you look at not only the metaverse, but also some of the other projects that are really pumping right now, whether you look at Sand and Sandbox and what they've been able to do, Mana being Decentraland, along with many of the game tokens that are really started to get some action in the space. This side of what is happening on crypto right now is absolutely stunning, and we're going to continue to see, I think, some pretty big developments along with not only Bloktopia, but others. But today we're going to dive in a little deeper on Bloktopia. Let's get to it. Before we do, though, we want to thank our sponsors, I Trust Capital, of course, who they do a tremendous job on anything you can imagine when it comes to crypto IRAs. And most of the time, when you're looking at a crypto IRA, one of the things that you have to look out for really is understanding, do you have full flexibility of trading within your account, which with I Trust you do. You can invest in most of the projects that you're already invested to, whether you're looking at Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polkadot, Chainlink, Cardano, and even physical gold. What I've done with this is really kind of lock in on the two primary assets, being Ethereum and Bitcoin. The benefits of that is, remember, in a IRA, you have a certain amount that you can take or kind of commit to it each year. And it's kind of a set it and forget it. But if you do want to trade within it, you have that capability of adding to your IRA and all those kind of elements that you can with any other IRAs, being able to really kind of build upon your investment portfolio. But the cool thing is it starts to set you up for tax benefits to the end of the year. So if you're already starting to worry about capital gains, maybe now is the time to kind of jump into this. There are some other advantages to this with their Coinbase custody aspect. World's leading institutional cold storage provider. It is a SOC 2 Type 2 security certification. It simply means it's very secure around your crypto being within the IRA trust account in terms of really understanding that what you're putting in there is getting protected. And then you've got Curve, of course, in here, which is MPC cold storage, eliminates single points of failure. That's another big advantage, is having that backup in terms of something like this. And if you look at where a lot of IRAs are built on, in many cases, traditional IRAs don't have that kind of security. So that's a big advantage. The other advantage here is going to be the $100 in Bitcoin. If you just use our link below, you're going to get $100 in Bitcoin when you sign up for an account. So you can actually get into the program without signing up for an account, start learning a little bit about how it works. It's absolutely free. Another thing that was a big, huge thing for them is they dropped all the monthly fees that are completely off. So it's free monthly for maintenance. You simply are just paying for the trade that you're doing inside the crypto IRA. So big benefits, $100 in Bitcoin, free monthly, no monthly cost, I should say, now free. And then, of course, the benefit from a tax position as you start to kind of get into your tax planning for 2021 and moving into 2022. So that's the number one thing you can do there. Let's jump into Bloktopia and in general what's going on in the metaverse. And one thing that is kind of interesting, if you look at just where the big players are, this story here is the top 3 most anticipated metaverse coins on the market right now. And this is kind of the typical of what you guys might be expecting to be on that list. Obviously, we've talked about Star Atlas. We've reported on it many times. Star Atlas and kind of their focus at 341 million right now. And it's another one of those great games. And hopefully we're going to have the CEO of Star Atlas on the show here to talk really about the roadmap, how Star Atlas is moving out. And then the other ones you can look at, of course, is number 2, and that is Bloktopia here at 827 million. Bloktopia, of course, is providing kind of the next generation VR, AR, and we'll talk and really break down into that. But I wanted to give you an example that they are really hanging with some pretty big projects, being Star Atlas, and then, of course, number 1 on the list right here is no other than Sandbox, which has really been the darling of the metaverse space. For about the last 30 to 60 days, we've started to see Sandbox really break out. A lot more people are aware of it. and have really kind of mainstreamed it to a certain extent. Bloktopia, I think, is at that state right now. It's still a little bit more difficult to get to, but if you do want to grab it, whether it's over on KuCoin or on Gate.io, those are probably the easiest ways, even though you do have trading pairs to get to an asset like that. But I was very interested in kind of this whole approach of their founder. This was a Q&A with Bloktopia's founder, and I wanted to highlight a few things that Patty talked about. So he's talking about virtual real estate, sales, roadmaps, his tokenomics regarding the upcoming Bloktopia Metaverse. And really what he started to dive into is how Bloktopians will be able to start to earn and really kind of create entire environments around this. Now, initially, my first observation of Bloktopia is when you look at projects that are this encompassing and this big, I'm always concerned about, are you biting off too much from a development standpoint? The other aspect is, are there certain areas that within it will start to accelerate and become very popular and also do very well for the project? Because I don't think you necessarily have to hit on 100% of your roadmap. What you do have to do is deliver on sequential wins within the roadmap, and I think that's what Patty is talking about here. So block tokens will be known as Bloktopians. Users will be able to buy and sell non-fungible NFTs. You're going to be able to purchase digital ad venues. I'll talk about that and kind of show you a little bit how that works. Own real estate and more in the Bloktopia virtual reality, while you can also earn revenue by selling or leasing virtual property in the Skyscraper to interested buyers. So there's all kinds of different aspects of how this plays out. Here was another element we want to make entering Bloktopia as accessible as possible. This is where I think it's a little bit, not necessarily misleading, but I'm just saying they're just not there yet for it to be mainstreaming versus like a Sandbox or an Axie Infinity, which has really mainstreamed for most people that are in the crypto space and understanding what's happening in gaming and in general virtual reality and how that might apply in the metaverse. So I think once they do get to the area of true onboarding and they make it super easy to do that, now we have something with Bloktopia and definitely could be a big, big key. So they envision a version of VR glasses that are going to be downloadable version in time. Another interesting interface here, and then also no plans for other skyscrapers at the moment. VR is part of thinking, but not mandatory. The main target audience is anyone with a vested interest in crypto, because again, this gets back to the whole point of you're kind of preaching to, preaching to the crowd that understands what's happening here. And I think that is a good thing, but at the same time, to be able to leap and move into mainstream, getting that like an Axie, I think we're starting to draw in, or Axie is starting to draw in more and more retail, not only retail investors, but also players and gamers that are starting to really understand kind of how blockchain gaming is going to go. So this is go back to the article here. Bloktopia pulls together everything together, makes it easy. It doesn't alter the decentralized nature of crypto. Then when we realized this was a big problem in crypto world, we started having several conversations about, with people who agreed that, hey, we've got to decentralize this whole concept. So I think their mission of decentralization of obviously the metaverse is a key element here. But the key, I think, for them, as I said, is really going to be onboarding that whole process. They're also working through possibilities of integrating other games. There are many questions about if we want to do that. If so, what would the games be? That'll be interesting to see as we start to see VR kind of evolve. I'm kind of curious as to whether or not Meta, meaning aka Facebook, will start to create kind of that aspect of it, whether they do it through acquisition of bringing on game companies that they've maybe acquired, or they're trying to basically flip from a 2D to maybe a VR kind of scenario. That's where it gets a little interesting, because whether you like Meta or you don't like Meta, the potential there, just because of the amount of money that's being thrown at it from a developer standpoint, that I think will be able to accelerate that mainstream onboarding that I'm talking about here. Another aspect is Block will act as a currency with Bloktopia, allowing people to purchase items within the world. Initially, you'll get NFTs that'll be sold for real estate and advertising space. And I think that's a good entry point for people because they'll understand that. And also there will be a certain amount of demand there, obviously from companies and more commercial interests that will really kind of go in that direction. So good stuff, I think, in the sense of whether or not this project is a project that you want to get into. Currently trading at 10 cents here. It's been down a little bit. You can kind of see where you can get to this right here, KuCoin, Gate.io, etc. And we'll kind of talk a little bit more about Metaverse in general because this is where it gets kind of interesting. If you look just at the ranking of Metaverse projects here, let me kind of zoom in on that for you a little bit. We'll stay with both ranking, current market cap. Look how small these companies are still. You've got Axie at 7 billion. I know that sounds like a lot, but when you look at the size of some of the majors, and this is basically the big dog in the hunt here when it comes to Metaverse overall, but Axie, Decentraland, Sandbox, obviously we know holding in at 3.9. This is going to be a mover. Engine, Wax, and you can continue to see now we start to move into some of the Metaverse games. My Neighbor Alice, Seek, we've talked about here on the show before. Radio Cacao, same thing. And then right there's Bloktopia, holding it at 867 million, up over the 7-day, down a little bit on the 24-hour. And it's ranking just above Illuvium, which is really interesting to me because Illuvium has had a massive run up in terms of people, both influencers, but also I think in general, the crypto community understanding what Illuvium represents and kind of the movement there. But I don't think we've seen that necessarily with Bloktopia just yet. If you just look at their track here, let me kind of jump over to the all-time as it loads that chart, just to kind of see, they had this massive high back here in October. The fall off occurred, and then they've kind of stabilized a little bit here on this project. So this one actually may be in a position where we could see some action coming at it. And again, as we start to see them rolling out both roadmap achievements, but also that whole aspect of onboarding and really starting to see some action in terms of value provisioning, meaning people are trading on the NFTs, maybe doing something from an ad aspect. That's when I think we'll start to see Bloktopia start to really run. And that could happen right here in this altcoin season, especially in this Metaverse. We should start calling these things Metaverse season because this is something that I think we're going to continue to see the Metaverse and gaming projects, VR projects, continue to accelerate through the bear cycle. And many of these projects, I think, are going to end up really being able to move and get some very good positions in terms of investment. Maybe there's some adjustments here because it's kind of like what we've been tracking with Sandbox. Every once in a while you get a dip, and then that's usually a buying entry. And that might be the kind of the scenario what you're looking at right here with Bloktopia. I want to jump over to their site just to give you guys a visual aspect of what they're attempting to do here. So, the big thing here is really going after the whole aspect of real estate and NFTs. Obviously, it's decentralized metaverse, built and backed by Polygon. And it is a little difficult to get to if you're trying to go native into Polygon with this. Probably the easiest way still, I think, is going to be just going through, an exchange like a KuCoin or a Gate.io. But the other idea behind this, a never-changing reality of the block, you've got this whole move into NFTs to life, this whole area of what they're talking about in terms of creating a learning ecosystem. This is where I think they're going to start trying to bring in media aspects of that nature, and then obviously the earning aspect, which is going to be most likely, I think, advertising and real estate. And when I say real estate, metaverse real estate, which is really kind of the focus that they stay on in their light paper. And if you haven't had a chance to really review this light paper, I would jump to this because it really gets into, let me just kind of pull it up real quick. This is the one that they just did here in July of this year. What you'll see here is their tokenomics, I think, is interesting. The network and partners, we'll get to that one. They've got a lot here in terms of just the general aspect of learn, earn, play, create. I think play and create are going to be the laggards here in terms of actually getting something done as they start to roll out. But once you get into the aspect of real estate and how this might play into it, this I think has actually got some real legs here. especially, as I said, especially around the idea of advertising. So let me kind of scan through a couple of these others that I wanted to highlight for you. Market analysis right here, you can kind of see who they're up against. Decentraland, obviously one of the big ones, Sandbox, and of course Division Network with DVI. And them holding themselves, Somnium Space, and then Network, which you guys, I'm sure you guys have heard us talk a little bit about Network a little bit. And I think the aspect of Bloktopia just being in this group is pretty impressive in the sense that it's still a very, very low value, under $1 billion, low valued company, so, or project. So definitely a good one to watch. I like the graphics. They've done an excellent job. I think it'll be interesting to kind of see how this plays out. Obviously, they've done some partnerships. They've got BitBoy, Logan Paul. There's BitBoy right there with his big, I love that. Logan Paul and a few others that are kind of moving in that space. But their big area is going to be in the partnerships themselves. And that, to me, is when it gets really interesting, because obviously we got Animoca Brands in here. You've got, additional partners from the side of the retail investors who are going to start jumping into this in terms of the advertising side. And here's the ad block, accessing 300 million in crypto users worldwide. Again, they're going after the market that is native to really to what they're trying to do. Here's the advertising aspect. I was talking about that earlier in what you might be able to do here. So this is where the ads can start to play into this if you own one of these. So an example would be each of the advertising boards will be owned 50% by Bloktopia and 50% by the NFT holder. And then those NFT holders will gain 1% of all advertising revenue generated by the totem for every NFT held. So that's kind of cool in that aspect. I like the, this is intriguing as we start to see it. I like the trading board aspect, the auditorium that's going to be launched, Bloktopia Radio. That's where I think we'll start to see some interesting things around content creation, which I think will be the other big win in this. So right now it's going to be buy, sell, lease virtual real estate. And then I think the next one will be learn, and really starting to see education and or content starting to proliferate its way through into Bloktopia. All right, let's take a look at, and there's so much here. I mean, they are trying to do a lot. It is a massive project. I think still highly undervalued, and the metaverse is still in its infancy, and I mean really in its infancy in terms of the number of projects that are moving in this space and to the value that these projects are essentially being earmarked at right now. A lot of these are really in a good spot to start to take a look at. Not that we're giving you guys financial advice. This is not financial advice, but what hopefully it's doing is pointing you in the right direction. That's what these market movers are for. Pull a little bit of data together, give you a chart, and also kind of give you our opinion on how things are working within a project and where its weaknesses are, where its strengths are, and what it might be able to do long term. And that's the thing. So when you look at kind of those long-term holds in Metaverse, obviously you're probably betting on things like Sandbox or Axie Infinity from a gaming side, or some of these rising stars. But if you're looking for those 5x, 10x, 20x projects, even though there are a few of those out there, even in the altcoin space, we've already seen that with projects like AVAX or Avalanche, where we've seen pretty much a 10x from where it started on the first video that we talked a little bit about. These are the kind of projects with Bloktopia that we'll probably see these kind of potential opportunities here. Now, will Bloktopia do a 10x? That would be highly unlikely, but it could do a 2, 3, or 4x. So the question is do you want to bet in the metaverse and maybe see a longer play here, or bet more on a risky altcoin that may or may not see a particular altcoin rise, even though we will see a lot of that happen on the primary and more of the mainstream altcoins, that we'll continue to see that as we start to see altcoin season break out. All right, so let's move over here to the chart quickly and kind of see where sentiment had hold. We pulled a sentiment score right here on November 20th. This was a 7709 and an AMP score of 7639, and which simply means it's most likely going to see a little bit of sideways action before we see a potential pop right here. And this is going to be something that we're anticipating. I want to pull another sentiment bubble right here, because I think that will be a scenario that might be a good one to really watch. This area right here, which is a little bit concerning, is that it could really open up a big opportunity for Bloktopia to maybe take a huge upside on this. If you look at kind of the history of what it was capable of doing and where it came back in, the last time we pulled a sentiment number was the 18th of November, just a couple days earlier, and you can see the quick movement that this had, almost not necessarily parabolic. Let's see what the percentage was for that right there onto that high right there. So 42% on that gain in a very, very short period of time. That's the kind of scenario that I'm looking for right here between this little guy right there and where we could be. So if we're running up at, I mean, you can kind of see where it potentially could be. That's over 30% right there. To our top right now, we're setting at about 27%, but this is a short time frame. This is one of those that we're really interested in watching a little bit closer as things start to change for it. Also, I anticipate we're going to probably see a little bit more movement in the community with Bloktopia. So that in itself, I think, also starts to help, because as you guys know, amplification and sentiment kind of work hand in hand. Sentiment is kind of showing the quality of how the community talks about it, but also how retail investors and people in general, media, analysts, etc., influencers, look at a particular project. And then amplification is where we start to see that network effect starting to affect price action. And that's the really special place. Now, where you usually pull those is in those downward troughs of a sentiment, as we see a downward trough of price action and a sentiment opportunity to pull one, then we can kind of gant out where amplification might particularly be going. So this could be in a very early stage for Bloktopia. And I think the big thing here, if you are looking at the metaverse right now, it has to be one of the projects that's in your watch list, or one of the projects that maybe you're starting to dabble in. It's definitely one that we've put into our portfolio. We like where it's going. Again, still questioning whether or not it can handle the big roadmap, but I don't necessarily think it has to win on all those aspects. That's the big scenario there. If you can win on some of those things, and we've seen so many projects that have been able to do that with, say, hitting on 6 of 10 of their roadmap items and staying on. As long as they're on the critical ones, that's the key of how it goes. All right, if you guys are listening in over on the podcast, best thing over there we want you to do, of course, is subscribe. And we love the fact that you guys give us so many comments over there, but guess what? You could bring it right over here to YouTube, drop some comments here. And the cool thing is you can also join the Diamond Circle. Guess what? We're going to be doing something really cool this week, maybe tomorrow, most likely tomorrow. And that is giving away some money, because we are hitting the 200,000 mark here on the channel. A big move in a very short period of time, all because of you guys. And a big part of it is the Diamond Circle family and how you guys have been able to share our content and really kind of bring a lot of new people to the channel. So we want to thank you out there for that. It's free to join, and also you've noticed most likely we've been dropping a ton of new content. If you're an early Diamond Circle member and haven't been back to your page, go check it out, because we've been dropping project after project. A lot of new research has been going in there, and we're dropping those emails. Let me know if you would like more frequent email updates, because sometimes when we drop a project update, we wait maybe not to add it to the email to notify everybody. So unless you're checking back, you may not know that we dropped an analysis. If you like that, or if you want us to, if we drop an analysis, we just pop that out as a member update or a member alert. I'm open to some ideas. We just don't want to spam you guys. We want you to want to see a Diamond Circle email or an update. How would you like to see it? Would you like us to drop it out on Twitter, or do you think right here on our daily YouTube shows? Wherever it might be, just give us some comments down below of where you think it's going to help you the best. Number one thing is always, we want you to have access to it all the time, 24/7. So when we may be doing stuff over off times, that's when you should be checking back on your Diamond Circle, because you'll be able to get right in there and get to that. So maybe stick a tab, and that's a good way to do it. All right, if you guys have ideas for a show, drop it in the comments below. You can always reach me on Twitter. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.